Hey everyone, welcome to A Great Alternative. In today, there's quite a few bees around. I think there's a nest somewhere in here, so I apologise if we hear buzzing bees or you see bees. I think it's bumblebees. I don't actually know how they nest. That's not the right term. Anyway, in today's video, episode number 10 of the Can I Make Cordage from That? That's not what it's called, but you know the playlist. I'm going to be talking about making cordage from daffodils. So if you've not seen one before, hopefully you have. We're on episode number 10 now. So if you're interested, go watch a whole host of other cordages that I've made. But if you've not watched one before, then I go over IDing the plant, harvesting it, preparing it specifically for cordage, super simple, this one, and then making a very simple cordage. Every single episode, it's the same 2-ply cordage. And then after I've done that, it will be a rough evaluation of whether I think it will be a good cordage for you and what uses maybe I would use that cordage for. Two things to apologise for before I get started. Firstly, the rain. It's a lovely spring day at the moment, and yeah, so I apologise if there's a bit of noise in the background. Secondly, I apologise if I butcher the Latin name or scientific name for things, because this one gets a little bit sciencey, that's the right word, and I probably will butcher the words, so apologies for that. Right, daffodils. Daffodil, also called Narcissus, is a genus of predominantly spring-flowering perennial plants of the Amaryllis family. Ready? Amaryllidacea. I'm not going to attempt that again. Daffodils have instantly recognisable flowers with a central trumpet surrounded by 6 petal-like tepals, usually yellow or white. The flowers stand on sturdy stems above slender leaves, reaching from just 20 centimetres, 8 inches, to about 50 centimetres, 20 inches, depending on the cultivar. The botanical name for the daffodil is Narcissus, named after a young man known for his beauty in Greek mythology who was tricked into falling in love with his own reflection. The drooping flowers that characterise most daffodils are said to represent Narcissus bending over to catch his reflection in a pool of water. The name derives from the Greek narco, which is the root of the word narcotic. The etymology probably relates to the daffodil's toxicity, because all parts of the plant are poisonous. There are more than 27,000 cultivated varieties. Despite intensive breeding, most daffodils are yellow, and the UK is actually the world's biggest grower of daffodils. Planted in September, they spend several months developing roots before the flowers burst forth, usually between February and May. The daffodil is the national flower of Wales, where I am right now, and a symbol for many cancer charities in many countries. Daffodils have many uses. They've inspired writers, poets, and artists throughout the centuries. They are associated with a number of themes in different cultures, ranging from death to good fortune, and as a symbol of spring. Despite the lethal potential of Narcissus alkaloids, they have been used for centuries as traditional medicines for a variety of complaints, including the application to wounds, strains, or painful joints, and even in cancer treatments. Powdered flowers have also been used medically as an emetic, a decongestant, and for the relief of dysentery in the form of a syrup or infusion. In researching for this episode, I also came across a farmer in Wales who is growing a specific variety of daffodil for its higher levels of the chemical galantamine, which is used to slow down the progress of vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease. As for harvesting, although it grows in abundance here in Wales, I tried not to take too much. Harvest by cutting at the base of the stem, only taking a leaf or two from each bulb rather than the whole thing. So, preparing and storing. After harvesting, it's basically just been sat inside. That is pretty much the preparation, other than the soaking. So I'll get onto soaking in a second. But first, I do want to show you, which I will do in cutaways, the difference between the colour from 2 different sites. They're both daffodils. Like I mentioned, there's 27,000 different varieties. So it's likely that these are just two different varieties. But the difference in colour, one being a lot more green and yellow, and the other one being a lot more brown. This could be because of how I dried them. They weren't dried in exactly the same spot. One was outside the front of the house, inside, had access to some light, but not warm, not cool, just kind of a Goldilocks temperature. And then inside, the ones that are a bit more brown, it is a bit warmer, so that could also be why. So it's, in a way, the ones that have kept the yellow and green colours were dried a lot slower compared to the brown ones. That would make sense, because that's been similar with other cordages that I've tried. So, not sure. Again, comment down below, see what you think. As for getting this ready for today, using the water, this, first of all, towel's been soaked with water and they've been sat here. I mean, to be honest, I think they're still a little bit dry. Again, I'll show you this in cutaways. It's very brittle still, so you have to be very careful. And what I've learned recently in preparing leaves especially, things that are very delicate to begin with, not low and slow, but long and slow, just being very delicate with it, not soaking it, because sometimes leaves can become slimy if they're just soaked too much. Or, for example, if you put them in hot water, that might damage the leaf, I think, damage the integrity. So that's why today I'm experimenting with having these sat in a damp towel. They've been sat here for about 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that. I'm just going to continue to give them a soak. Tell you what, I might not do the brown set today, just because these ones are prettier. There's a bit more colour here. So to reiterate, towel was soaked in water. These were given a spray and sort of move around like this. Spray. And then they've been wrapped back up in the damp towel and sat there for about 20 minutes. What I'm learning with this series very much is how different every single material is, and how part of, because again, like with all these episodes, this is my first time ever making cordage with this fibre, to kind of prove to yourselves and to me that a beginner can do this. You don't have to have years and years of experience to do things. So what I have learned with working with these different materials is how sometimes you do just have to sit there and play with it, fiddle with it, maybe when it's fresh, when it's drying, and when it's totally dry and re-soaked, to gauge the differences between that cordage and that fibre for when you're then going to use it within your natural craft. An example of this is like what I'm doing right now. So my fingers are a little bit wet, and some of the water the droplets are sat on top, so I'm almost massaging and just making sure, just running my hand through the leaf to feel how wet it is. You can definitely feel, if you get to a bit you're like, oh, that's bone dry still, then you know that needs to be wet. And so therefore, whether it be spraying it, wetting your hands and wetting it, as opposed to this bit in the middle here, I can kind of feel it has a spongy kind of feeling almost. So I feel, okay, that's ready. Like I said before, I'm not going to delve into how I make this cordage, but very simply, twist, alternative hands, and then you get it into a loop. It just goes in on itself, twist, over, twist, over. Adding a new piece, you lay it over both, and then continue twisting as normal. Again, if you do want to watch a more in-depth tutorial, go to one of the first videos in this series. Otherwise, I'm going to skip ahead through the magic of television to when I've completed this cordage. Right? And there we have it, Daffodil Cordage. So, what do I think? I would describe it in a similar way to dandelion. I know the leaves aren't the same, but the feel of it, especially when using it for cordage, it did have a similar feel to dandelion, sort of almost a waxiness at the thicker end, whereas at the thinner end, it's very brittle. So to then use it for cordage, it was definitely a longer process to spray and soak and spray and soak, but wrapped in a towel. However, I did find that some of the leaves did get to the point where they became almost started to get slimy. So it's definitely that push and pull of soaking them slowly, not letting it get too wet because it will just fall apart, but also at the same time, it not being so dry that, again, as you twist it, it just separates and breaks into a million different bits. With that said though, once it's done, I think this is quite a nice cordage. I think it will dry fairly brittle. Again, I don't think this one would be on the top of the list for potentially using this as a sort of a usable logistical cordage. However, it's definitely not at the bottom. I would say sort of out of the 10 that I've done so far, I would say this for using it as a day-to-day cordage, I would put it somewhere around 6 or 7. What I do really like about this one is the colour. The variations of yellow especially, then varying to green and bits of brown, I really quite like. So I think if I was to use this, that's how I would use it, within maybe a basket. Again, bearing in mind it's poisonous, so basket that might not necessarily be getting wet or being really held with hands. I'm obviously holding this. Quick side note, I haven't put my hands in my mouth once since I started messing around with the cordage. So and then as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to go wash my hands before I do anything else that involves touching my face, which I do all the time. With that in mind, like I said, I would use this potentially for something natural crafts. So yeah, a sculpture, a basket, a piece of clothing, or some kind of accessory, something like that. I think this would be great for. Before I go, got a little plug for you. If you want to support the channel, but also if you want to get access to something that I've made that accompanies every single one of these videos, is a kind of cordage cheat sheet, a little downloadable thing that you can either print off or have it on your phone that accompanies each one of these episodes. My idea was that, I mean, I like to do it. I take out a little leaflet or a little book or something, a bit of paper that sort of helps me if I'm out and about and I've seen something and I'm trying to ID a plant, or if I'm doing a natural craft. So I like that idea, made me own. So if you go on our Patreon, I think it's the second tier, which is where you would get access to all of these. But yeah, if you want to, there's a whole bunch of stuff on there, so you can become a free member and there's a whole bunch of stuff, or there's varying tiers. And like I said, you get access to things like behind the scenes material. I'm hoping to make more kind of Q&A stuff and just a whole bunch of extra content really. So if you'd like to help out the channel, as well as getting access to things like the cordage cheat sheets, please go on the Patreon. So with that said, I think that's a great cordage, another great one to add to the list. For today, I will leave you with another cordage. What's probably my favourite out of the 10 so far, even though dandelion for some reason has been really popular, my favourite is, it's a real tough one between these two. Dog fir and sweet corn husk. So I'm going to leave you with these videos and you can pick which one is your favourite out of these two, or tell me below if it's not one of these. If out of this 10 you've enjoyed something else a bit more and you've maybe experimented with one more. Otherwise, thanks again everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.